Have you ever left a conversation wishing you had said things differently or wondering why it just felt well off?
Oh, I think we all have, absolutely.
Right. Welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow. I am so excited for our mission in this deep dive
Yeah,
today.
this is going to be a really good one.
It really is. Today, we are focusing on mastering the science of human connection so you can become a highly respected communicator, without ever feeling overwhelmed by the whole process.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
It doesn't. And to give you some numbers right up front, today we are going to master exactly 4 crucial pillars of communication, and we will break down 3 specific strategies to handle difficult people.
hmm Very actionable stuff.
Right. And just a quick note for you listening right now, throughout this deep dive, we are going to focus heavily on C1 level English. So we'll be repeating and explaining difficult vocabulary, phrasal verbs, and idioms like organically, so you can really improve your natural speaking and effortless listening flow.
Which is so important for everyday conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have to tease that there is a very special bonus tip waiting for you at the end of this deep dive. So definitely stick around for that.
You won't want to miss it. It is going to be incredibly valuable. So, to set the stage for you, it is believed by top minds in communication, experts like Harvard Business School professor Alison Wood Brooks, that every relationship in your life is simply a repeated sequence of conversations.
Wow, just a sequence of conversations.
Yeah, that is really all a relationship is when you break it down. If you can improve the tiny micro decisions in those everyday conversations, you naturally raise your status.
Status? Like, wait, do you mean like wealth or class?
Good question. No, to be clear, when I say status in this context, I don't mean your social class or how much money's in your bank account.
Yeah.
I mean the respect, influence, and um, genuine likability you hold within your social circles and at work.
Oh, I love looking at it that way. I mean, if a relationship is just a sequence of conversations, then improving those conversations changes your entire life.
Literally your entire life.
Yeah, but I guess to fix our communication, we first need to diagnose why we usually fail at it.
Right,
Just
right.
thinking, why do we walk away from a chat at a party or, a networking event feeling so awkward? What is the actual root of the problem?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to a difficult C1 level word, which is egocentrism.
Egocentrism. Okay.
Yeah. Now, egocentrism is often misunderstood. It isn't just about being selfish or vain, It's actually a cognitive bias.
Like a brain glitch.
Kind of, yeah.
Hmm.
It is our brain's default setting to process every single piece of information through the lens of, well, how does this affect me?
Oh, interesting.
And this is actually an evolutionary survival trait. Our ancient ancestors survived because their brains were constantly evaluating threats from their own isolated point of view.
Because they had to, right, to stay alive.
Exactly. They didn't have the mental bandwidth to worry about how the guy in the next cave over was feeling.
Right. Our egocentrism kicks in to stave off an attack. And just for you listening, the phrasal verb to stave off just means fighting to prevent something bad from hitting us. Like, staving off danger or staving off a disaster. We put our mental shields up.
That's a great way to describe it.
But if our brains are constantly trying to stave off social threats, that intense self-focus must completely get in the way of genuinely connecting with whoever is standing right in front of us. Right?
Oh, 100%.
We are just so busy worrying about how our hair looks or, if we sound smart, we basically forget the other person exists.
Exactly. You're physically present, but mentally you are entirely focused inward. And that brings us to the very first pillar of our 4-part framework to kind of short-circuit this bias.
Okay, let's get into it.
It's the TALK framework. TALK. And the T stands for topics.
Topics, okay.
Yeah. Research shows that only about 10% of people prep their topics before meeting someone.
Only 10%? That's crazy low.
Right. Think about how absurd that is. If you have a date or a big meeting, you might spend an hour picking out the perfect outfit, doing your hair, checking the mirror.
Oh, for sure.
But you spend 0 seconds thinking about what words will actually come out of your mouth. So you should always use the 30-second topic prep rule.
The 30-second rule.
Yeah, take just half a minute, like while you are walking into the lobby or riding the elevator, to brainstorm 3 quick things the other person might be interested in.
I have definitely been guilty of the blank mind panic. So this topic prep sounds like laying out your clothes the night before a big trip.
Yes, perfect analogy.
It just prevents a total meltdown in the moment, You aren't scrambling for words. But I do have to push back here a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
If you're listening to this on your commute, You might be thinking, isn't this just planning for small talk?
Well, yes and no.
Because honestly, isn't small talk just a shallow, painful waste of time? I mean, it genuinely drives people up the wall.
It can, yeah.
And just to clarify that idiom for you guys listening, to drive someone up the wall means to highly annoy or deeply frustrate someone. So, doesn't small talk just drive people up the wall?
It absolutely can, if you stay stuck there. But you have to view small talk through the mechanism of the topic pyramid.
The topic pyramid.
Yeah, imagine a pyramid. At the bottom, you have the wide base. This is small talk, the weather, the traffic, the sports game.
Right, the basic stuff.
Exactly. In the middle tier, you have tailored talk topics specific to that person's actual hobbies or career. And at the very peak, you have deep talk.
Like vulnerable stuff.
Yes, vulnerable, meaningful connection, sharing fears or dreams. So small talk is an essential warm-up. It is a searching mechanism.
Good searching mechanism. I like that.
You start at the broad base and use it to search for mutual interests so you can climb up to the middle of the pyramid together.
Because you can't just jump to the top.
Exactly. You cannot instantly jump to the peak of the pyramid with a stranger. The brain rejects it as too intimate, too fast.
Okay, that searching mechanism idea completely changes how I view it. You aren't talking about the traffic because you care about the traffic.
Right.
You're just testing the waters to see where they lead. So let's say we're using our 30-second prep. We've started at the base of the pyramid, and we've successfully found a mutual topic.
Right, you're in the middle.
Right, we're in the middle of the pyramid. How do we keep the momentum going so the conversation doesn't just die?
That brings us to the A in the TALK framework, which is asking.
Asking.
Yeah. If our brain's default setting is that inward-focused egocentrism we talked about earlier, the absolute best antidote is asking questions.
Because it forces you to look out.
Exactly. Asking a question forces your brain out of its own survival mode and forces it to focus externally on the other person. Specifically, you want to use the strategy of never-ending follow-up questions.
Never ending. How does that work in practice?
It means that every time the person speaks, you actively hunt for one specific detail in their answer and you ask a question about it.
Like picking a thread.
Yes. For example, if they say, I just got back from a stressful work trip in Chicago, you don't instantly say, oh, I've been to Chicago.
Even though that's what we all want to do.
Right. That's egocentrism pulling you back in. Instead, you ask, what made the trip so stressful? Or what do you do for work that takes you to Chicago?
I get the logic of keeping them talking, but I have a major concern with that.
Okay, what is it?
If I know I am intentionally, strategically hunting for a follow-up question every single time they speak, doesn't that start to feel a bit manipulative?
I can see why you think that.
Or like I'm a robot just running a conversational algorithm.
That is a very valid concern, and a lot of people feel that way at first. But here is the psychological reality. Knowing the strategy does not undermine your authenticity.
It doesn't.
No, because you still genuinely care about getting to know the person, but you are mature enough to recognize that your human brain gets distracted easily.
Ah, so it's a tool.
Yes, the strategy is simply a behavioral nudge. It reminds you to actually show the care you feel. Psychologically, human beings get a massive dopamine hit when they talk about themselves.
That is very true.
The golden rule to remember here is, to be interesting, be interested. When you are deeply, genuinely interested in exploring their thoughts, they will walk away thinking you're the most fascinating person they've ever met.
Okay, I can see that. It's a structure that allows your natural curiosity to actually shine through instead of, getting blocked by anxiety.
Precisely.
But asking the questions is only half the battle, right? We also have to prove we are actually listening to the answer.
Yes, exactly. And this is where we separate the amateurs from the highly respected communicators. There is a massive difference between listening 101 and listening 201.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, listening 101 is the basic nonverbal stuff you learn in grade school. Making eye contact, nodding your head, maybe leaning your body forward.
Polite stuff.
Right. It is essential, but it is basic. Advanced listening. Listening 201 requires words.
Which brings us to another fantastic C1 language lesson for you all. A powerful phrasal verb to use here is to point out or to play back. When you play something back, you literally just repeat the core of what was said, like playing back a recorded tape. You're saying the most authoritative communicators will point out what they heard.
Yes. The highest status communicators actively play back the other person's reality. They use linguistic grounding phrases like, "What I heard you say is," or "It sounds like you're
That
feeling."
is effective.
It really is.
Yeah.
By pointing out exactly what they just expressed, you are doing something incredibly powerful for their brain. You are validating their existence.
Oh.
You are giving them undeniable, concrete proof of your attention. You prove that you aren't just politely nodding while waiting for your turn to speak.
It makes them feel deeply seen. I love that. And before we dive into the next pillar, I want to take a quick moment. If you are enjoying this deep dive right now and you feel like you are improving your English flow today, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, please do.
It really helps us keep bringing you this level of analysis. Okay, so let's connect the dots here. We've got our prep topics, we are asking great follow-up questions, and we are actively playing back their answers.
Sounds like a great conversation so far.
It does, but there is a huge risk here. If we just bounce questions back and forth relentlessly, it starts to feel like a very intense police interrogation.
That's so true.
How do we break that tension and keep the conversation human and engaging?
That exact tension is why the L in our framework is so vital. L stands for levity.
Levity.
Yeah. Levity means lightness, humor, and playfulness. It is the injection of positive energy.
Mm.
What's fascinating from a psychological standpoint is that conflict is almost never the killer of conversations.
Really? Then what is?
Boredom. Boredom is the quiet killer. Boredom makes people check their phones or look over your shoulder to see who else is in the room.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
Right. Levity is the sparkle and the fizz that cures that boredom and immediately yanks people back into the present moment.
So how does adding that sparkle connect back to the idea of status that you mentioned at the very beginning? Does being funny make you more respected?
Dramatically so. Research indicates that making a group laugh, even just one time in a meeting, drastically increases your chances of being viewed as the emergent leader of that group.
Just one time.
Yeah, humor signals high social intelligence. It proves you can read the room. However, you have to be very careful with one specific type of humor, and that is self-deprecation.
And self-deprecation means making a joke at your own expense
Oh, yeah.
or highlighting your own flaws. Why is that dangerous? I always thought laughing at yourself was a good thing.
It depends entirely on your current status in the room. If
Oh.
you are already the CEO, or clearly high status, self-deprecation is incredibly effective. It humanizes you and makes you relatable.
Okay, I see.
But if you are the newest, lowest status person in a group, using self-deprecating humor can actually backfire terribly.
Oh, because they might believe you?
Exactly. Because people don't know you yet, they might take your joke as truth and start to genuinely question your competence. It confirms a negative bias rather than subverting it.
Oh, wow. That is a subtle but crucial distinction for anyone trying to navigate a new workplace.
It really is.
Okay, let's look at the opposite problem. Let's say you are trying to keep things light, you are using levity, but you have an Uncle Polly in the room who completely dominates the conversation.
Oh, we all know an Uncle Polly.
We do. You know the exact type of person I mean. When an Uncle Polly takes over, the whole conversation can go completely off the rails. They love to hold court, and nobody else can get a word in edgewise.
It's exhausting.
It is. And let's quickly explain those C1 idioms from context for our listeners. To hold court means to be the center of attention and dominate the talking, acting like a king on a throne while everyone else just listens. And to get a word in edgewise means you are struggling to even enter a conversation because the other person simply will not stop talking. So how do you handle a dominator without being rude?
Well, it can be incredibly frustrating. But there are a couple of very practical, polite strategies to handle dominators who hold court. First, you can use a verbal redirect.
A verbal redirect.
Yes. Instead of telling them to stop talking, which creates conflict, you deliberately shift the focus. You wait for them to take a breath, and you firmly say, "That's fascinating. Actually, I really wanted to hear about Sarah's basketball team."
Oh, nice.
And as you say it, you physically turn your entire body in eye contact to Sarah.
You passes the baton.
Exactly. The second strategy is for the workplace. The work bestie intercept.
The work bestie intercept. I love the sound of that.
If you find you are constantly getting interrupted in meetings, you ask a trusted colleague beforehand to act as your shield.
Oh, teamwork.
Right. When the dominator cuts you off, your friend steps in and says, "Hold on, I'd actually love to hear the rest of what you were going to say."
I love that because I've always just completely frozen when an interrupter takes over because I didn't want to be seen as aggressive. But using these redirects is essentially just like directing traffic, isn't it?
That's a perfect way to look at it.
You are deliberately putting up a polite stop sign for the aggressive driver, and you are waving the quiet pedestrian through just to keep all the cars moving fairly.
Exactly. And just like a traffic cop, if you don't step in to manage the flow, the most aggressive driver is going to cause a crash that ruins the experience for everyone else. You have to view yourself as the active steward of the conversation.
So levity keeps things fun and redirecting traffic keeps things flowing. But what happens when the traffic cop faces an angry driver?
Ah, yes.
What happens when a conversation turns actively stressful or someone makes a deeply belittling remark?
Well, that brings us to our final pillar, which is arguably the hardest to master. The K in TALK stands for kindness.
Kindness.
Now, I need to be clear. Kindness does not mean being a weak pushover who just accepts insults.
Good, because that wouldn't feel right.
No, it means utilizing respectful language and responsive listening, even and especially during moments of high conflict. This taps directly into the psychological science of receptiveness.
Walk us through the mechanics of that, because let's be real. When a family member makes a hurtful comment disguised as love-like, a sharp comment about your weight or questioning why you were still at a low-paying job, the immediate burning reaction is to get incredibly defensive.
Of course, that is your egocentrism kicking in to stave off the emotional attack. Your brain's amygdala lights up, and you prepare for a fight.
It's instinct.
But the scientific recipe for creating receptiveness in the other person is acknowledgement and affirmation. You have to validate their underlying emotion or intent before you state your boundary.
Okay.
And a massive part of de-escalating that amygdala response involves avoiding certain types of trigger words.
Let's explain the C1 word dogmatic here for the listeners because it fits perfectly. Being dogmatic means expressing your personal opinions as if they are absolute, undeniable, universal facts.
Precisely. In an argument, we instinctively use dogmatic words like because and therefore.
Oh, interesting.
We say things like, you are wrong because, or therefore you don't care about me. These words are incredibly dangerous in conflict.
Why?
They escalate tension instantly because they leave zero room for the other person's reality. They sound like a judge handing down a final sentence.
So if our instinct is to fight back dogmatically, what is the actual strategy to use instead?
You use something called the dividing technique.
The dividing technique.
Yeah, you mentally divide your identity in the moment. This allows you to acknowledge their intent, which calms their defensive brain, while entirely protecting your own boundaries.
How does that sound in real life?
For example, if your mother harshly criticizes your career path, you divide the relationship from the feedback. You say, as your daughter, I know you love me and you just want the best for my future. But putting on my professional feedback hat, the way you phrased that comment really wasn't helpful to me.
I have to admit, that feels incredibly hard to actually execute in the heat of the moment.
Oh, it is.
Like validating the intent of someone who basically just insulted you, it takes an immense amount of self-control.
It is genuinely difficult. It requires emotional maturity.
Yeah.
But look at the mechanism of why it works. By dividing your identity, you acknowledge the value of the relationship, which prevents them from feeling attacked.
Right, their walls stay down.
But simultaneously, you firmly reject the unacceptable behavior. It allows you to remain highly respected, maintaining your high status while setting an impenetrable boundary.
That is incredibly empowering. It takes the panic out of conflict. Okay, so we have deeply explored the TALK framework.
We have.
We know we need to prep our topics using the 30-second rule, ask follow-ups to break egocentrism, inject levity to cure boredom, and maintain kindness through the dividing technique.
That's the formula.
But there is one universal, awkward problem we all still face, even if we do everything right.
What's that?
How do you actually, gracefully exit a conversation?
Well, what is truly fascinating here is that behavioral research shows nobody knows when to end a conversation perfectly.
Really? Nobody?
Nobody. Psychologists have studied this extensively, and it is fundamentally impossible to perfectly time a moment when both people simultaneously want to stop talking.
That makes me feel so much better.
One person always wants to leave earlier than the other. So the ultimate secret to exiting is to give yourself grace.
Just accept it.
Accept the awkwardness as a scientific reality.
Wow.
Stop trying to find the perfect, smooth segue and simply say with a warm smile, this was a great chat, but I have to go. Bye.
That's simple.
Yes. Conversations are, by their very nature, messy train wrecks. And that is perfectly okay.
Just embrace the train wreck. I love the relief in knowing that everyone else is just as awkward as I am when saying goodbye. Now, I mentioned at the start of our deep dive that there's a bonus tip waiting at the end, and here it is.
Yes, this is a brilliant psychological secret regarding the magic of eye gaze.
Eye gaze.
Yeah. High-status people naturally get stared at by the group. In a boardroom or at a dinner party, our eyes naturally drift to the leader. But this dynamic makes the quiet, lower-status people in the room feel completely invisible.
Oh, that's so sad but true.
If you want to instantly raise your own status and be viewed as a deeply empathetic, magnetic leader, deliberately focus your eye gaze on the lowest status or quietest person in the room while someone else is talking.
Wow.
It silently invites them into the fold and makes them feel profoundly valued without aggressively putting them on the spot to speak.
Using empathy as a deliberate status builder, that is such a powerful tool to walk away with. Please like, share, and subscribe to keep improving your effortless listening flow with us. And I want to do a quick commitment check with you right now.
Awesome, let's do it.
If you made it all the way to the end of today's deep dive, please write, "I stay committed" in the comment box. We really want to see who is truly dedicated to mastering their English flow.
It is absolutely the best way to solidify what you've just learned and prove your dedication.
Exactly. And to test that learning one final time, here is your idiom quiz for today.
Earlier, when we were talking about dominators holding court, we talked about a conversation going off the rails. What does the idiom off the rails mean? Write your answers in the comment section.
I am really looking forward to reading those explanations.
So the next time you walk away from a conversation wondering why it felt just a little bit, well, off, remember, you don't need to panic and you don't need to overthink it. You just need to prep your topics, ask the right questions, and maybe, just maybe, play the traffic cop. See you next time.